In 1999, an entire senior class vanished during prom night. Last week, they were seen again. Most urban legends start with a grain of truth, but what happened in the small town of Merrill Creek wasn't legend, it was fact. On May 14, 1999, 87 seniors from Merrill Creek High attended their prom at the town's old event hall. By midnight, every single one of them had disappeared. The teachers, the DJ, the chaperones, even the janitors swore they saw nothing unusual. The music was loud, the lights were dim, and the teenagers were laughing, dancing, living their last hours like any group of graduates would. Then, in the space of a single song, they were gone. No screams. No commotion. Just a ballroom floor littered with dresses, shoes, and abandoned tuxedo jackets. The police searched for weeks. The FBI came. Psychics were consulted. Parents refused to move away, convinced their children were still out there somewhere. But no bodies were ever found. Eventually, the hall was closed, sealed off, and the case was filed as unsolved. Merrill Creek never forgot. 25 years later, Ellen Weaver drove past the rusting gates of that same event hall. She was the new English teacher at Merrill Creek High, fresh out of grad school and still clutching her idealism like a shield. She'd taken the job because she wanted out of the city, away from the noise and the constant grind. She told herself it was just another teaching position. But when she saw the faded Prom 99 banner still clinging stubbornly to the locked gates, something inside her stirred. That night, as she unpacked boxes in her small rented house, she Googled the story. Articles, documentaries, conspiracy theories, there was an endless rabbit hole. Some people said the students had been kidnapped in bulk, smuggled out by a cult. Others swore it was paranormal, that the whole hall was cursed ground. But one detail kept snagging Ellen's attention: not a single photograph survived from that night. Parents claimed they'd taken pictures. The photographer swore he'd developed rolls of film. But all the images came back blank, fogged, or destroyed. It was as if the class of '99 had never existed at all. On Ellen's first day at Merrill Creek High, she stood before her junior English class, scanning faces. The school was worn, the kind where every hallway echoed, every locker clanged like a church bell. Students whispered about her, the new teacher, the city one, the outsider. She ignored it. She'd been through worse. Halfway through her lecture on Gothic literature, she noticed something. A boy in the back row, tall, with pale blonde hair and an old-fashioned suit jacket, was staring at her without blinking. Not glaring, not daydreaming, just staring. "Is something wrong?" Ellen asked, pausing mid-sentence. The class laughed nervously. But the boy only smiled, slow and deliberate, as though he knew something she didn't. After class, she checked the attendance sheet. His name wasn't listed. That night, she couldn't sleep. She kept seeing his face, the too pale skin, the way his clothes looked dated, like something from the late '90s. She told herself she was overreacting. First day jitters. Stress. But when she returned to school the next morning, his desk was empty. She asked another student about him. "Tall guy, blonde hair, sitting in the back yesterday?" The girl frowned. There wasn't anyone sitting back there. Ellen's stomach dropped. By the end of her first week, strange things piled up. She found an old yearbook from 1999 tucked into the teacher's lounge bookshelf. Curiosity pulled her to the senior portraits. She scanned through the rows of smiling faces frozen in time. And there he was. The boy from her class. His name, Adrian Hale. The caption beneath read, "Most likely to never grow old." Her blood ran cold. Friday night, Ellen stayed late, grading papers in her classroom. The halls were silent, the kind of silence that feels heavy, pressing against your ears. At 7:14 p.m., the school intercom crackled to life. No one should have been using it. At first it was static. Then a voice, faint but clear, singing. Musical note, time of your life, musical note. The old Green Day song. The same one that had been the final slow dance at prom night, 1999. Ellen's red pen slipped from her fingers. She left her desk and stepped into the hallway. The music was echoing, growing louder, coming from the gymnasium. Her shoes squeaked against the floor as she walked, every nerve screaming to turn back. The gym doors stood open. Inside, colored lights flickered faintly, like an old disco ball still turning after all these years. And then, she saw them. Dozens of teenagers in prom dresses and tuxedos, frozen mid-dance. Their skin pale, their eyes glassy, their movements jerky, as if they were marionettes being pulled by invisible strings. At the center of it all was Adrian Hale, his smile wide and wrong. He turned his head slowly, locking eyes with her. "Miss Weaver," he said, his voice echoing unnaturally. "We've been waiting for you." Ellen froze in the doorway of the gymnasium, her breath catching in her throat. The scene before her shimmered like a nightmare trying too hard to look real. Dozens of teenagers swayed to the faint hum of music, their heads tilting at strange, unnatural angles, eyes glassy as though staring through her. The flickering lights above reflected off sequins, satin, and tulle, frozen fashions straight out of 1999. "Miss Weaver." The boy, Adrian Hale, stepped forward. His tuxedo was pristine, his hair immaculately combed back, but his eyes looked empty, as if something else were wearing him like a mask. "You," Ellen's voice cracked. She swallowed hard. "You're not supposed to be here." A ripple of laughter spread through the frozen dancers. It wasn't joyful, it was hollow, layered, as though it came from dozens of throats all at once. Adrian's smile widened. "Neither are you." Ellen staggered back into the hallway, slamming the gym door shut. Her heart hammered so violently she thought she might pass out. She ran, her shoes pounding against the linoleum, past the lockers, past the trophy cases. By the time she reached the parking lot, her hands were shaking so badly she could barely fit the key into her car door. When she finally got home, she locked every door, pulled every curtain, and sat trembling on her couch until dawn. By morning, she convinced herself it had to be a hallucination. Stress, exhaustion, the weight of all those stories she'd read about the vanished class. But deep down, she knew better. The next Monday, she walked into the teacher's lounge, pale and jittery, and found Mr. Harper, the history teacher, sipping coffee. He was in his 60s, with weary eyes and a gravelly voice that carried too much of the past. "You look like hell," he said bluntly. "Did you ever?" Ellen hesitated, lowering her voice. "Did you ever know anyone from the class of '99? Harper's eyes darkened instantly. He set his coffee down with a slow, deliberate movement. "My niece," he said. "Sarah Harper. Sweetest girl you'd ever meet. She vanished that night, same as the others." I think Ellen's throat tightened. She couldn't bring herself to say it out loud. "I think I saw them." Instead she said, "What do you think happened?" Harper studied her for a long moment, then leaned in. "They're stories, Weaver. Things most folks here don't talk about, not to outsiders. But I'll tell you this much, if you ever hear music playing in that school after hours, don't you dare go looking for it." That night, Ellen dreamed of Adrian Hale. He was standing at the foot of her bed, whispering words she couldn't understand. Behind him stood rows of shadowy figures in prom dresses, their faces blurry, their hands outstretched. When she woke, her bed sheets were damp with sweat, and lying on her nightstand was a folded slip of paper. Her stomach dropped as she unfolded it. It was a prom invitation. Merrill Creek High School Senior Prom. May 14th, 1999. You are cordially invited. At the bottom, in flowing script, was her own name. Ellen Weaver. The following day, she cornered a student in the library, Melissa, one of her sharper juniors, a girl with a knack for gossip. "Melissa," Ellen said carefully, "what do you know about the class of '99? Melissa blinked. "You mean the vanishings? Everyone knows that story. Humor me." The girl leaned forward, lowering her voice conspiratorially. "They say it wasn't just the prom. They say some of the kids came back afterward. Not all of them, just a few. People saw them around town. Walking late at night. Standing in driveways. Always wearing the same clothes from that night. But when anyone tried to talk to them, they'd vanish." Ellen's skin prickled. "And you believe that?" Melissa shrugged. "I don't know." But, she hesitated. "A couple nights ago, my mom swore she saw her old lab partner. He would have graduated in '99. Said he looked exactly the same. Not older. Not a day." Ellen spent the rest of the week in quiet dread. Every time she walked the halls, she felt eyes on her. Every time she passed a darkened classroom, she swore she heard faint music drifting from within. On Friday, as she gathered her things to leave, a folded envelope slid under her classroom door. Her heart stopped. She picked it up with trembling hands. The envelope was yellowed, brittle with age. Inside was another invitation. This one read, "Prom night reunion, 25 years later. Saturday, May 14th, 2024. The event hall." Beneath it, scrawled in black ink, "You're invited, Miss Weaver. Don't be late." That night, she drove past the old event hall again. The rusted gates still bore the decayed banner, but this time, the padlock was broken. Through the cracks, she saw faint colored lights glowing inside. And as she sat frozen in her car, the front doors creaked open. Silhouetted in the doorway were teenagers in prom attire, their heads tilting in eerie synchronization. At the center was Adrian Hale, holding out his hand as if inviting her to join. Then, all at once, the music started, louder than before, unmistakable. Musical note, it's something unpredictable, but in the end it's right, musical note. Her blood turned to ice. The song that had played during the class of '99's final dance. The following Monday, the whispers began. Ellen was halfway through taking attendance when she heard them, soft voices trickling through the vents. She froze mid-sentence, her students watching as her eyes darted toward the ceiling. The whispers were faint but layered, dozens of voices overlapping, like a crowd murmuring just outside a closed door. At first, she thought it was her imagination. Then she caught fragments of words. "Coming, soon. Join us. Prom night." Her pen slipped from her hand and clattered onto the desk. "Miss Weaver," one of the students asked nervously. Ellen forced a smile that felt like it might crack her face. "Sorry. Just tired. Let's continue." But she couldn't shake it. The voices were too real. That afternoon, she went to the school archives, an old, dusty storage room in the basement where yearbooks, records, and boxes of forgotten trophies sat gathering mold. She spent hours digging through files until she found what she wanted, the official police reports from 1999. The language was clinical, detached, but the details were horrifying. All 87 students unaccounted for. No signs of forced entry or exit. All clocks in the event hall stopped at 11:59 p.m. Photographs from the night developed into blank film. The DJ swore the song "Good Riddance, Time of Your Life" was still playing when the students vanished. In the margins, someone had scrawled in pen, "Not gone. Still here." Her hands shook as she shoved the file back into the box. On her way out of the basement, she nearly collided with Harper, the history teacher. His face was pale, his jaw tight. "You shouldn't be down here," he said sharply. "I needed answers," Ellen replied, breathless. Why didn't anyone tell me the details? The clocks? The photos? Harper's eyes darkened. Because it doesn't change anything. They're gone. Nothing brings them back. Ellen hesitated. What if they're not gone? He stared at her for a long, suffocating moment before finally whispering, "Don't say things like that. Not in this school. Not with these walls listening." And then he turned and walked away, leaving her heart pounding in her chest. That night, Ellen dreamed again. She was back in the gymnasium, but this time, the students weren't dancing. They were standing in neat rows, hands clasped in front of them, faces blank. Adrian stepped forward, his pale eyes locked onto hers. "You're invited, Miss Weaver," he said softly. "It's time." Behind him, the students raised their arms in unison, pointing at her, their mouths opening wide in silent screams. She woke with a jolt, her phone buzzing violently on the nightstand. It was a text message. From unknown. "Don't be late. Saturday. 11:59. The week dragged forward like a funeral march. Ellen tried to focus on lesson plans, grading essays, the daily rhythm of teaching, but the whispers kept slipping through, sometimes from vents, sometimes from hallways, sometimes, she swore, from right behind her when she was alone. By Thursday, she noticed something else. Her students were changing. Melissa, the gossip-loving junior, seemed distracted, her eyes unfocused in class. Another boy, Kevin, fell asleep at his desk, and when Ellen shook him awake, he muttered, "I have to get ready for prom," before going pale and insisting he didn't remember saying it. On Friday, half her class came in dressed too nicely, boys in button-down shirts, girls with glitter on their eyelids. When she asked why, they just smiled faintly. And then she saw it. The invitations. Tucked into backpacks, folded into pockets, slipped beneath textbooks. Identical to the one she'd received. Her stomach dropped. They weren't just coming for her. They were coming for the entire current senior class. That evening, Ellen drove straight to Harper's house. She found him sitting on his porch, staring into the woods with a whiskey bottle clutched in one hand. "They're back, aren't they?" she demanded. He didn't look at her. "I told you not to get involved." "I saw them," she whispered. "In the gym. And the students, they're getting invitations too. What happens on Saturday?" Finally, Harper turned to her, his face hollow with years of grief. "They call it the reunion," he said. "Every 25 years. The class of '99 tries to take another. That's why we never rebuilt the hall, never touched the land. But it doesn't matter. You can't stop what's coming." "Take another?" Ellen's voice cracked. "Another class?" He nodded. "They need replacements. To finish what was started that night. The cycle has to continue." Her throat tightened. "Why me? Why am I involved?" Harper's eyes met hers, and for the first time, she saw raw fear there. "Because you weren't supposed to come here, Miss Weaver. You were chosen. Just like them." Saturday night came too quickly. At 11:45 p.m., Ellen sat in her car outside the old event hall, the invitation clutched in her trembling hands. Colored lights pulsed faintly through the broken windows. Music throbbed in the distance, muffled, but unmistakable. She told herself to drive away. To leave Merrill Creek and never come back. But something heavier than fear rooted her in place. And then, she saw them. Students in prom attire walking steadily down the road toward the hall. Some were her juniors. Some were strangers. But none of them spoke, none of them looked around. Their faces were blank, their movements eerily synchronized, as if pulled by strings. At the center of the crowd was Adrian Hale, smiling as he carried a crown in his hands. He looked directly at Ellen through the windshield of her car. And then he raised his hand, beckoning her forward. Ellen's knuckles turned white around the steering wheel as the students filed past her car. Their faces were slack, drained of individuality, like dolls wound up and set in motion. The night air was thick, heavy with the faint hum of music leaking from the event hall. Adrian Hale walked in front, carrying the crown as though he were leading a parade. The grin never left his face, but there was no warmth in it. Only hunger. Ellen told herself again to drive away. Put the car in gear, floor it, leave Merrow Creek and never look back. But her body betrayed her. She opened the door, stepped out, and felt her legs carry her toward the crowd like she was no longer in control. When she reached the rusted gates, the old banner flapped faintly in the night breeze. Prom night, 1999. The letters were faded, but the date, May 14th, was still scrawled clearly. Adrian turned and held out his hand. "We've been waiting for you." The event hall doors creaked open as the crowd entered. Ellen hesitated on the threshold, her chest tight, her pulse thrumming in her ears. Inside, the hall was alive. The chandeliers glowed golden, the floor gleamed as if freshly polished, and the air was sweet with the smell of roses. A banner stretched across the ceiling, Class of '99, forever young. But the room was filled not only with her students. The vanished class of 1999 was there, too. Boys in tuxedos, girls in shimmering dresses, frozen in the fashions of another era. They looked the same age they had been the night they disappeared, 25 years ago. And now, side by side, they danced with the living. Ellen's breath hitched as she watched Melissa twirl in the arms of a boy with slicked back hair who clearly belonged to another time. Kevin, the sleepy boy, was clapping along with a group that Ellen recognized instantly from the yearbook photos. None of the living students seemed alarmed. Their faces mirrored the glassy calm of their partners. Like they had been claimed. Adrian approached, his pale eyes locked onto hers. "It's been too long," he said, his voice carrying unnaturally across the music. "What do you want from them?" Ellen demanded, her voice trembling. He tilted his head, amused. "What was promised? What was owed? I don't understand." "You will." He held out the crown, shimmering under the chandeliers. "It's time to choose the new king and queen." As he spoke, the crowd of dancers parted, forming a circle. Ellen found herself shoved forward, her protests swallowed by laughter that sounded hollow, too many voices blending into one. At the center of the circle stood a girl in a white dress, her hair falling in perfect curls. She looked radiant, untouched by time, but Ellen recognized her instantly from the yearbook. Sarah Harper. Mr. Harper's niece. The girl raised her head slowly, her glassy eyes fixing on Ellen. "The crown must pass," Sarah whispered, though her lips barely moved. "Every 25 years. The living for the lost." Ellen's stomach twisted. "You're trying to take them." "My students." Sarah blinked slowly. "Not trying. Already done." Ellen spun. Around her, she saw her class disappearing into the sea of 99 faces, dancing, swaying, fading as if becoming part of the vanished. "No," she shouted, lunging forward. But when she grabbed Melissa's arm, the girl's skin was ice cold, her pulse absent. Melissa only smiled dreamily and whispered, "See you at prom." Ellen stumbled back, her chest constricting. Adrian stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You can't save them, Miss Weaver. But you can join them. That's why you're here." "Why me?" she demanded, her voice breaking. "Why me?" His smile sharpened, cruel and triumphant. "Because you were always meant to be one of us." The music shifted, swelling louder, brighter, almost triumphant. The chandeliers above rattled as the air thickened, heavy with static. Ellen clutched her head as whispers filled the room again, louder now, overlapping voices echoing from every wall. "Forever young. Join the dance." She was chosen. The crown in Adrian's hands gleamed with unnatural light. He lifted it high, his eyes never leaving hers. "Prom queen," he said softly, almost lovingly. "It's your turn." And then the dancers surged forward, hands reaching, pulling her into their circle. Ellen fought, thrashing, clawing at the hands that clamped onto her arms, her shoulders, her hair. The cold touch of the vanished seeped into her skin, numbing her. "Stop," she screamed. "I'm not one of you." But Sarah Harper's voice cut through the chaos, calm and chilling. "It's not a choice. It's tradition." Adrian lowered the crown toward Ellen's head. The voices around her rose to a fever pitch, chanting words she couldn't understand. Just as the cold metal brushed her hair, the chandeliers flickered violently. The music stuttered, warped, as if a record had skipped. And a booming voice echoed from the back of the hall. "Let her go." Ellen's eyes snapped toward the doorway. Mr. Harper stood there, his face grim, a shotgun clutched in his hands. His presence was jarring, painfully human in the sea of uncanny figures. For a heartbeat, the dancers froze. Adrian's smile faltered. "She doesn't belong to you," Harper growled, stepping into the hall. The lights above shuddered. The whispers sharpened into a scream. Adrian's voice cut through the chaos, low and venomous. "She belongs to us all." And with a single gesture of his hand, the doors of the event hall slammed shut with a deafening bang. The shotgun's echo still rang in the cavernous event hall as Mr. Harper leveled the barrel at Adrian. The room seemed to ripple with unease. The dancers twitched, their glassy eyes flickering toward the intruder like marionettes awaiting a cue. Ellen stumbled back, the crown inches from her head now lying abandoned on the polished floor. "Harper," Adrian said slowly, his smile slithering back onto his face. "It's been a long time." Harper's grip on the shotgun tightened. "I should have burned this place to the ground years ago." "You tried," Adrian said, amused. "But you can't burn what isn't fully here. We live between." Ellen's voice broke through, trembling but desperate. "What are you? What do you want with them?" Adrian's eyes glittered, pale and sharp. "We are the class that never graduated. The night was ours, and it never ended. But eternity demands new blood. The living must take our place so we can keep the dance alive." Sarah Harper's voice drifted from the crowd, her tone soft, almost apologetic. "It's the price of the pact, Uncle. You knew that." Ellen's head snapped toward Harper. "You knew?" Harper's face crumpled. "I didn't want you involved in this," he said, his voice ragged. He didn't lower the shotgun. "When Sarah vanished, I started digging. The pact goes back longer than anyone realizes. Every 25 years, the senior class disappears. One year it was a fire. Another, a flood. The town always rewrites the story. But the truth is, it's ritual." The room seemed to darken, the chandeliers flickering as if in response to his words. Adrian chuckled. "At least someone remembers. Merrow Creek was built on a promise: give us your youth, and we will never wither." That night, the class of '99 fulfilled the bargain. But someone must always replace us. And tonight, the torch passes again. Ellen's stomach twisted. "So you're not just victims. You chose this." Adrian's smile sharpened. "Wouldn't you? To never age? To never fade?" He spread his arms, inviting her to look at the frozen sea of glittering dresses and tuxedos. "We are forever young." The crowd whispered in unison, a chilling echo, "Forever young, forever young." Harper's jaw clenched. "You're parasites. You're feeding off them." Sarah's glassy eyes softened. For a moment, her voice sounded almost human. "We didn't want to. But once you're here, you can't leave. It's the only way." The chandeliers pulsed brighter, and the dancers began moving again, swirling in slow, hypnotic circles. Ellen's students were vanishing deeper into the crowd, their faces dimming, their bodies losing color as if being drained. "No!" Ellen shouted, pushing past Harper. She grabbed Melissa again, shaking her, begging her to wake up. Melissa's lips moved, whispering, "You'll see, it's beautiful." Ellen felt her throat close. Adrian stepped closer, his voice soft and cutting. "You can't save them, Miss Weaver. But you can spare them pain. Take the crown. Wear it. Be the queen." Led them into eternity. The crown lay at her feet, gleaming with a light that didn't belong to this world. Her trembling hand hovered above it. For one terrifying moment, she felt an urge to pick it up, to let the voices in her head quiet, to stop fighting. "Don't," Harper growled, his voice snapping her back. "That's how they take you. That's how they keep the cycle going." Adrian's smile didn't falter. "You don't understand, old man. She was chosen long before she set foot in Merrill Creek." Ellen's head whipped toward him. "What do you mean?" Adrian tilted his head. "Why do you think you came here? Why do you think the job opened up at just the right time? It wasn't chance. It was invitation." Her pulse spiked. No, I applied." "Who told you about the position?" Adrian asked gently. Her mind reeled. She remembered the email forwarded by a colleague, the strange way it felt like an opportunity dropped into her lap. She remembered thinking how perfectly timed it had been. Adrian's grin widened. "We called you, Ellen. And you answered." The chandeliers flared white-hot, and the walls of the event hall shivered like they weren't walls at all but thin fabric stretched over something infinite and hungry. Ellen stumbled back, her heart pounding. Harper raised the shotgun, fired. The blast echoed like thunder. One of the chandeliers shattered, glass raining across the floor. The dancers shrieked in unison, their voices inhuman, a chorus of pain. Adrian staggered, his smile breaking for the first time. His pale eyes glared at Harper, blazing with fury. "You dare! Run!" Harper bellowed. Ellen bolted, shoving past the dancers, her hands scraping across sequined sleeves and icy skin. The whispers clawed at her ears, rising into a scream. "Don't leave, don't leave, don't leave." She reached the double doors, slammed her shoulder against them. They didn't budge. Behind her, Adrian's voice rang out like a whip. "You can't leave until the clock strikes midnight." Ellen turned toward the wall. Above the stage hung a massive clock, its hands frozen at 11:59 p.m. The same time recorded in the police reports. The same time the class of '99 vanished. Harper appeared beside her, reloading the shotgun with trembling hands. His face was pale but determined. "We've got 1 minute," he rasped. Ellen's voice broke. 1 minute until what? The second hand on the clock began to twitch. Adrian's smile returned, wide and cruel. "Until the dance begins again." The dancers surged forward. The second hand moved. And with a thunderous clang, the clock struck midnight. The clock struck midnight, each clang vibrating through the hall like the beating of some vast, unseen heart. With every strike, the walls seemed to shiver, their polished wood and glittering chandeliers peeling away, revealing something much darker beneath. The prom decorations wilted, balloons sagged, streamers blackened, banners with golden lettering melted into dripping tar. The glossy gym floor warped, splitting to reveal gray stone beneath, damp and ancient. The class of '99 screamed in ecstasy, their voices merging into one endless howl. Their smiles cracked too wide, their faces stretching like masks of wax. Ellen's breath came in ragged gasps. "Oh my God!" Harper yanked her arm, pulling her back as the crowd surged. "Stay close. Whatever happens, don't let them touch you." The dancers spun faster, their feet scraping against stone, leaving behind bloody footprints that weren't there before. Adrian walked through them, untouched by the chaos, his grin calm and terrible. "Welcome to our night," he said, his voice booming as if amplified by the walls themselves. "You've arrived at the true prom. The one beneath the one you remember. Where the chosen give themselves to eternity." Ellen pressed her back to the warped doors, but they were no longer wood, they pulsed like flesh beneath her palms. She pulled her hands away, gagging. The students from her class were caught in the tide, their faces paling, eyes glassy. Melissa was among them, twirling in the arms of a faceless dancer in a powder blue tux. "Melissa!" Ellen screamed, fighting forward. The crowd shifted, blocking her path, their hands brushing against her arms, ice cold. She felt something pass from them into her, like static electricity mixed with grief. Each touch threatened to strip her will away. Harper fired the shotgun again. The blast tore through two dancers, their bodies collapsing into smoke before reforming seconds later. He cursed. "Doesn't slow 'em down for long. Just buys us time." Adrian's eyes burned brighter. "You think you can fight tradition with bullets?" He gestured toward the clock. The hands spun wildly now, faster and faster, until they blurred. "Time here doesn't belong to you. It belongs to us." The floor split, and from the cracks rose dark, skeletal hands, hundreds of them, grasping at the air, reaching for ankles, for wrists, for throats. Ellen screamed as one clamped around her leg. Its grip was iron, pulling her toward the floor. She kicked frantically, stomping its bony fingers until they snapped. Adrian's laughter echoed. "You can't stop it. You can only choose how it ends." Harper shoved her behind him, swinging the shotgun like a club. "He's lying," he barked. "That's all they do, lie. There's always a way out." "Out?" Adrian mused, tilting his head. "Yes, perhaps. But only for one. The rest belong to us." The dancers shrieked, circling faster, blurring into streaks of color and bone. The sound of music swelled again, but it was no longer prom music, it was something older, something wrong. A choir of voices singing in reverse, layered with screams. Ellen's mind spun. There has to be a way to stop it. There has to be a reason this happens every 25 years. Her eyes darted to the stage. The crown still glowed faintly, lying where she had dropped it. Its jewels pulsed like a heartbeat. She remembered Adrian's words, "Take the crown." "Led them?" She whispered, horrified, "It's not just a crown. It's the anchor. The key to the pact." Adrian's grin sharpened. "Clever girl." Harper's eyes flicked to the crown, then back to Adrian. "So if we destroy it?" Adrian's smile faltered just slightly. "You wouldn't dare." That hesitation told Ellen everything she needed to know. Harper raised the shotgun. "Get the crown." Ellen sprinted toward the stage. The dancers howled, their faces twisting into masks of rage. Dozens lunged for her, their arms elongating, their fingers stretching like claws. She dove, sliding across the slick stone floor, and snatched the crown. The instant her fingers closed around it, a jolt of electricity surged through her, searing her nerves. Visions slammed into her mind. The class of '99, on that night, screaming as the clock froze. Adrian offering them the crown. Sarah, tears streaking her face as she took it. The others bowing to her. The pact sealed. Her body convulsed. The crown wanted her. It whispered promises of power, of beauty, of eternal youth. "Ellen!" Harper shouted. Her vision cleared just enough to see Adrian charging forward, his perfect face now cracking, revealing something skeletal and monstrous beneath. His voice split into many, layered and demonic. "Put it on," he roared. "You're already chosen. Don't fight what you are. Ellen staggered, crown in hand, torn between instinct and terror. If she wore it, she might end the struggle, or doom herself forever. The skeletal hands clawed higher from the cracks, gripping her waist, her arms, dragging her down. She screamed, trying to tear free. Destroy it, Harper bellowed. But the crown pulsed against her palms, whispering, don't. If you break me, you break them. They will all vanish. Even your students. Her breath caught. Melissa's pale face flickered through her mind. Save them, or save herself. The floor beneath her collapsed further, the skeletal arms pulling her waist deep into the stone. Harper ran toward her, but a dozen dancers swarmed him, dragging him back. Adrian loomed over Ellen, his face a skull with eyes like fire. His voice thundered, shaking the hall. Choose, Ellen Weaver. Wear it, and rule with us forever, or destroy it, and send them all into the void. The clock above struck once more. The second hand stopped. The world held its breath. The frozen clock loomed above them, its hands locked in place. The world held still, as if waiting to see what Ellen would do. She clutched the crown so tightly it cut into her palms, the sharp edges drawing thin lines of blood. The whispers inside it were relentless, coaxing, pleading, promising. Put me on. Lead them. Save yourself. Save them all. Melissa's pale, blank face flashed in her mind again. Behind her, the rest of her class twirled in grotesque dances, their bodies bending in impossible ways as the skeletal hands dragged them deeper into the stone floor. Ellen! Harper roared, struggling against the tide of dancers pulling at him. Their hands clawed his jacket, their teeth snapping inches from his throat. He fought like a cornered animal, but there were too many. Adrian's skull-like visage bent closer, his fiery eyes drilling into hers. This is your destiny, he hissed. You were chosen the moment you stepped into this school. The crown calls only to the ones strong enough to wear it. Put it on, and all of this ends. All of this, she spat. Her voice cracked under the pressure, the cold stone rising past her waist. You're suffering. They're suffering. No more running. No more fear. Just eternal youth, eternal belonging. Isn't that what every teacher wants? To never lose their students? Her breath caught. A horrible part of her wanted to believe him. But then the crown shifted in her hands, heavy as iron now, thrumming like a second heartbeat. It pushed harder into her mind, offering visions. Herself at 20, ageless, flawless, laughing with her students forever in the endless dance. Harper, standing beside her, no longer grizzled or broken, but radiant and whole. No fear of death. No growing old. Just the glittering promise of forever. She shuddered, shaking her head violently. No, no, this is a lie. The whispers turned sharp. Break me, and you break them all. Even Melissa. Do you want her death on your conscience? Melissa twirled by again, her eyes catching Ellen's. For a split second, there was something there, pleading. A flicker of help me. Ellen screamed, rage and terror boiling over. She lifted the crown high above her head, every muscle trembling with the choice. Adrian's eyes flared. His voice thundered, stop. The skeletal hands around her waist surged higher, clutching her arms, dragging her deeper. The dancers wailed, spinning faster, a cyclone of flesh and color. Harper roared, shoving three of them off, lunging desperately toward Ellen. Do it, Ellen, he cried. She brought the crown down hard against the stone floor. It didn't break. The jewels glowed brighter, mocking her. The whispers turned into screams inside her skull. You can't kill me. I am the pact. I am the promise. Adrian laughed, a terrible, bone-rattling sound. You see? You can't destroy eternity. You can only join it. No! Ellen shrieked, slamming the crown again, harder this time. A crack formed along one of the gems. The glow sputtered, flickered. Adrian's face twisted in fury. The dancers shrieked in unison, their voices splitting the air. The skeletal hands recoiled for a moment, releasing her waist. Harper seized the opening, barreling through the dancers, grabbing Ellen's arm. Keep going! Together, they smashed the crown again and again against the stone. Each strike sent shockwaves through the hall. The decorations wilted further, the chandeliers crashed to the floor, the music warped into static. Adrian howled, his body convulsing, flickering between the perfect golden boy and the skeletal monster beneath. Stop! You'll unravel everything. You'll kill them all. Ellen's arms shook violently, but she raised the crown one last time. Her vision blurred, her ears rang with the screams of 100 voices, some angry, some desperate, some terrified. She locked eyes with Melissa one final time. Melissa mouthed the words, "Do it." Ellen brought the crown down. It shattered. Light exploded outward, blinding, searing. The dancers convulsed, screaming as their bodies tore into smoke and bone dust. The skeletal hands dissolved, vanishing into black mist. The warped stone floor splintered and fell away, revealing only darkness beneath. Adrian shrieked, staggering backward, his golden mask ripping away completely to reveal the horror beneath, a hollow-eyed corpse in a tattered tux, his skull grinning in rage. No! You fool! Do you even know what you've done? The hall shook violently. The clock above them shattered, gears raining down like shrapnel. The class of '99 stood frozen now, their bodies flickering like fading film reels. Some cried. Some smiled faintly. Sarah, the original prom queen, reached out a trembling hand toward Ellen. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice breaking apart like glass. And then, one by one, they all dissolved into dust. Melissa was the last to fade. Her eyes locked with Ellen's, tears streaming down her cheeks. She mouthed goodbye, and then she was gone. Silence. The hall was empty. The decorations gone. No stone, no chandeliers, no skeletal hands. Just the gym, as it had been, plain, quiet, fluorescent lights humming faintly above. Ellen dropped to her knees, gasping for air, bloodied hands clutching at nothing. Harper staggered beside her, chest heaving. He looked older than ever, sweat and grime streaking his face. "Is it over?" Ellen whispered. Harper didn't answer. He just stared at the floor where the crown had shattered. Because lying there, among the shards, was one last piece. A single jewel. Still pulsing faintly. And from the shadows at the far end of the gym came the sound of footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Adrian's voice, broken but alive, whispered through the air. "It's never over." The echo of Adrian's voice clung to the air, low and poisonous. "It's never over." Ellen's heart hammered in her chest. The jewel still pulsed faintly on the gym floor, like the last beat of a dying heart. Every flicker of light that spilled from it crawled across the walls in strange, shifting patterns, shapes that didn't belong to the geometry of the gym. Harper swallowed hard, his breath ragged. "Don't touch it." "I wasn't planning to," Ellen whispered, though her hands itched, almost magnetized toward it. The crown's remnants whispered faintly, like a dying radio. She couldn't make out words, but the tone was seductive, pleading, yet promising. The footsteps grew louder. Each thud echoed unnaturally, reverberating inside their skulls. Harper raised a broken chair leg like a weapon, his knuckles white. Ellen scrambled to her feet, blood drying on her palms. "Who's there?" she demanded, her voice trembling despite her effort to sound firm. From the far end of the gym, the shadows peeled back. It wasn't Adrian. At least, not fully. His once golden form was gone, reduced now to a husk. His tuxedo clung to bones, flesh withered like parchment. His eyes burned faintly, but weaker than before, like embers dying out. He stumbled forward, skeletal fingers clawing at the air. "You've broken the crown," he rasped, his voice brittle, carrying both hatred and fear. "Do you know what you've unleashed?" "We freed them," Ellen snapped, though her words trembled. "The class of '99 is gone. They're at peace." Adrian coughed, a sound like dry leaves crumbling. His hollow grin widened, but there was no triumph in it. "Peace? You think that was peace? They were bound to me. To this place. I kept it contained. Controlled." His voice rose, rattling through the rafters. "And now, you've set it loose." The floor shuddered. Not like before, when skeletal hands clawed from beneath. This was deeper. A groaning quake that rattled the bleachers and sent dust raining from the ceiling tiles. Ellen and Harper stumbled, grabbing onto each other to keep from falling. From beneath the gym floor came a sound, a hollow, wet slithering. As if something impossibly large was waking up. Harper's face drained of color. "Jesus Christ, what did we?" The jewel on the ground pulsed brighter, faster, as if sinking with the sound beneath. Adrian staggered closer, each step labored, his bones creaking. He pointed a trembling finger at Ellen. "You were meant to wear it. To keep it whole. To keep him asleep." Her blood ran cold. "Him? The king below," Adrian whispered, his voice breaking into a sob. "The one who gave us the crown. The one who promised us forever. We thought we were clever, using him, binding him to the dance. But the crown wasn't ours. It was his tether. And now..." The floor cracked violently, splitting open like a wound. From the fissures oozed a thick black tar, bubbling and hissing. The smell hit them immediately, rot, sulfur, old blood. The jewel's light grew until it seared their eyes. Shapes began to emerge from the cracks. At first, they looked like hands. But too many fingers. Too long. They bent in impossible directions, slick with the black tar. They clawed the air, searching, grasping. Harper swung the chair leg at one as it groped toward him. The wood splintered uselessly, and the thing shrieked, not like a person, but like metal grinding against metal. Ellen screamed, stumbling backward. She grabbed Harper's arm, dragging him toward the gym doors. "We have to get out. Now." They bolted, shoes slipping on the shaking floor. Ellen shoved at the door handles, locked. She yanked harder, slamming her shoulder against the metal, but it didn't budge. Behind them, Adrian's laugh turned to a dry, hacking cough. "You can't run. Not anymore. He's awake." The fissures widened, cutting through the gym floor like veins. From them rose something vast, something that made the air itself bend and twist. A face, or what resembled one, pressed against the gym floor as if it were a thin sheet of glass. It was too big, too wide, with eyes that stretched from one crack to the other. Not human. Not animal. Something far older. Its teeth, rows upon rows, scraped against the barrier, chipping the floor like stone under pressure. Its voice wasn't sound but vibration, trembling through their bones, rattling their teeth. "Hunger." Ellen clamped her hands over her ears, but it didn't matter, the voice was inside. In her skull, in her veins. Harper collapsed to his knees, shaking violently, his eyes rolling back. Ellen screamed his name, slapping his face, but he didn't respond. Adrian dragged himself closer, falling to his knees before the fissures, his skeletal arms raised in supplication. "My king! Forgive us! Take me back!" The thing below shifted, its impossible eyes locking on Ellen. New blood. New vessel. The jewel flared like a miniature sun, burning against the gym floor. Ellen shielded her face, but its light seemed to pull her forward. Her legs buckled. Every step she took toward it felt stolen from her will, her body no longer fully her own. She fought against it, but her muscles twitched and spasmed, betraying her. "No," she screamed. "I won't." But her foot struck the jewel, and it burned against her shoe like a coal. The thing below growled, the sound shaking the world. "We're the crown again. Open the gate." Ellen fell to her knees, hands inches from the glowing shard. Behind her, Harper stirred, groaning, trying to rise. Adrian screamed with wild laughter, his voice cracking into madness. And from the fissures, the black tar surged upward, forming shapes, humanoid, but wrong. Elongated limbs. Hollow faces. A dozen of them, then 24, pulling themselves into the gym. One reached for Ellen, its hand inches from her throat. And then the lights above exploded, plunging the gym into darkness. The gym was swallowed in instant, suffocating darkness. Ellen gasped, clutching her throat, feeling phantom fingers that weren't there anymore. The afterimage of the jewel still burned in her vision, a red smear across the black. All around, the air quivered with movement, wet, shuffling steps, guttural breathing, the hiss of tar sliding across tile. "Harper," she hissed, groping in the dark. A hand grabbed her wrist. She nearly screamed, but then his voice cut through, shaky and low. "I'm here." They huddled together, listening. The creatures moved everywhere at once, scraping against bleachers, thudding into walls, dragging something sharp along the gym floor. The jewel's glow had dimmed, but faint veins of red still pulsed from it, like arteries feeding into the cracks. Adrian's laughter still echoed, though thinner now, breaking apart into coughs. "The dance begins again, the true prom night. He'll make the floor red with you, just as he did with us." Something shuffled close. Ellen held her breath. A wet snarl rasped inches from her ear. She felt its heat, the stink of rot rolling off it. She fought the urge to gag. Then, a blinding flash. The emergency lights flickered on, red and stuttering, bathing the gym in a pulsing hell glow. And there they were. Dozens of tar creatures circled the room. Their bodies stretched unnaturally tall, skin like slick, black glass. Their heads were hollow, cavernous, with faint glimmers of eyes staring from deep within. Some dragged their arms against the floor, leaving black smears that hissed as the tile corroded beneath. And in the center, where the fissures gaped widest, the face below pressed harder against the barrier. Cracks spidered outward as its teeth ground against the floor. Every time the jewel pulsed, it pushed harder, closer to breaking free. Ellen's knees weakened. We can't fight this. We have to run." Harper nodded, though his face was pale, eyes wide. He pointed across the gym. "The back exit. If we can make it." But as soon as he said it, one of the tar creatures twisted toward them. Its face split wider, unhinging like a grotesque mask. It shrieked, and the others turned in unison. The hunt began. "Go!" Harper shoved her. They sprinted across the gym, weaving between the red flickers of emergency light. The tar things moved like insects, skittering, too fast for their size. One lunged. Ellen ducked, its claws scraping the air above her. Harper swung what remained of the chair leg, striking its chest. The wood cracked apart like matchsticks, but the thing reeled back, screeching. They bolted past the bleachers. The exit loomed just ahead. Ellen's chest heaved, lungs burning. She slammed against the door, pushing, clawing at the crash bar. Locked. "No, no, no!" She pounded against it. Behind them, the shrieks grew louder. Harper grabbed the bar, slamming his shoulder against the frame. "Help me!" Together they threw their weight into it. Once. Twice. The metal groaned. And then, with a deafening crack, the bar snapped. The door burst outward. Cold night air washed over them. They stumbled into the parking lot, breath clouding in the pale moonlight. But the relief was short-lived. The ground shook. Through the shattered gym windows, a pulsing red glow swelled brighter. The jewel's light spread like wildfire veins across the school walls. The tar creatures poured out after them, crawling along the brick like spiders, their hollow faces locked on the fleeing pair. Harper swore. "We'll never outrun them." "Then where do we go?" Ellen screamed, scanning frantically. The parking lot stretched empty, but the buses still sat rusting in their rows, their windows shattered long ago. Beyond them, the woods. "Bus!" Harper gasped. "Maybe we can hide, buy time." They sprinted for the first one. Ellen's legs felt like lead, every step slower than the last. She could hear them behind, too many, claws scraping pavement, bodies slapping against metal as they closed in. Harper yanked open a bus door and shoved her inside. They stumbled down the aisle, crouching low between seats. The creatures flooded the lot, their screeches deafening. Ellen clamped a hand over her mouth, shaking. Through the cracked bus windows, she saw them. Dozens. Maybe hundreds now. All swarming around the gym. Their bodies bent and writhed unnaturally, converging toward the fissure inside. And then, she saw Adrian. He stood in the center of them, skeletal arms raised, his face twisted in ecstasy. "Take me. Make me yours again." The creatures didn't hesitate. They swarmed him. Ellen muffled a sob as Adrian's bones cracked, flesh tearing, his scream shrill and triumphant all at once. The black tar pulled him apart, piece by piece, absorbing him into their mass. And then silence. The jewel flared so brightly that the gym roof caved inward. A shockwave ripped through the parking lot, shattering windows. Ellen and Harper ducked as glass rained across the bus. When Ellen looked again, the creatures were still. All of them. They turned their hollow faces toward the woods. And in perfect unison, they began to march. Harper frowned. "They're leaving?" Ellen's stomach twisted. "No. They're spreading." As they disappeared into the trees, the fissure roared, the face below pressing harder against the crumbling barrier. Its voice tore through the night. "The prom begins. All shall dance." The ground quaked violently. The entire school groaned as cracks split outward, racing across the parking lot, chasing toward the town below. Ellen grabbed Harper's hand, her voice breaking. "If it's not stopped, it'll swallow everything." Harper looked at her, grim. "Then the jewel's not just a tether, it's a key." Ellen followed his gaze back to the gym, glowing like a volcano about to erupt. Her chest tightened. She understood. If they destroyed the jewel completely, it might cut the tether forever. But to get to it, they'd have to go back inside, into the heart of it. She swallowed hard, meeting Harper's eyes. "If we go back, we might not come out." He gave a shaky smile. "Then I guess we make it one hell of a last dance." Ellen stared at the burning school, at the cracks ripping wider beneath, at the ancient face pressing harder to emerge. And she realized, this was always about the class of '99. Their dance never ended. The only way to finish it was to join it. She squeezed Harper's hand, trembling. "Let's end the prom." Together, they stepped back into the night, toward the pulsing red glow. The gym was no longer a gym. By the time Ellen and Harper pushed through the shattered doorway, the space had transformed into something unrecognizable. The floor sagged inward, bending like the warped surface of a drum. The fissure had spread, jagged cracks glowing red, forming a massive, pulsing circle at the center of the room. Above it, the air shimmered, distorting as if heat rolled from an invisible fire. Shadows twisted and bent in impossible directions, spinning like dancers caught mid-step. The bleachers were gone, replaced by rows of black, faceless figures standing motionless, waiting. The prom that never ended. The class of '99 was here. Their forms flickered in and out, part solid, part shadow, their old tuxedos and gowns rotting but intact, frozen in time. Ellen recognized Adrian among them, or what was left of him. His face was a hollow void, his grin stretching ear to ear as he swayed with the rest. And at the center of it all, the jewel. It floated inches above the fissure, pulsing with every beat like a heart ripped from some ancient chest. Each flash drew the creatures closer, swaying in unison, their mouths opening in a wordless chant. The voice of the king below thundered through the gym, shaking dust from the rafters. Dance. The prom is forever. The shadows lurched forward. The dance began. Ellen and Harper stood frozen at the threshold. "This is insane," Harper whispered, gripping her arm. "We can't stop this. We're two people." Ellen's voice cracked. "We have to try." Her eyes locked on the jewel. Somehow, she knew. That was the keystone. If it was destroyed, maybe the fissure would close. Maybe. But the jewel pulsed brighter, its veins digging deeper into the floor, stretching toward them like living roots. Ellen swallowed, forcing herself forward. "Cover me." Harper grabbed a length of shattered pipe from the ground, nodding shakily. They moved together, weaving through the shadowy dancers. The figures turned their heads as they passed, hollow eyes following them, their feet dragging in slow circles like a grotesque waltz. Ellen's skin prickled as one brushed against her, leaving a freezing burn where its hand grazed her shoulder. "Almost there," Harper muttered. The jewel glowed so bright now it painted their faces in blood-red light. It pulsed faster, as though it could sense them. Ellen reached out. Her fingers hovered just inches away when a hand shot out, clamping around her wrist. Adrian. What remained of him? "Don't you see?" His voice was a hollow rasp, but his grin stretched wider. "You're already one of us. You came here. You stayed. And now you'll never leave." Ellen yanked her arm back. "You're wrong." Adrian leaned close, his hollow sockets boring into hers. "You can't end the dance. Because the king already chose you to lead it." The jewel flared, so bright it blinded her. And then she understood. This wasn't about the class of '99 returning. This was about replacing them. Her chest tightened. She stumbled back, gasping. The fissure widened beneath the jewel, and the massive, jagged face of the king below pressed closer. Its teeth gnashed, grinding sparks. Its eyes, endless pits of hunger, locked on her. And its voice roared inside her skull. "You will be queen, Ellen." Harper's shout snapped her back. She turned, eyes wide with terror. "It doesn't want them, it wants me." The shadows surged forward. The dancers swayed faster, their movements jerky, violent. Hands reached, grasping. Harper swung the pipe wildly, smashing one away. "Then take it. Take the damn jewel and end this before it takes you." Ellen's pulse thundered in her ears. She lunged forward, shoving past Adrian's grinning corpse. Her hands closed around the jewel. It was burning hot, searing into her palms. Images flooded her mind, the class of '99, smiling for prom photos, laughing in the gym, then screaming as the floor cracked open, swallowed by the king below. And then, herself. Not now, but later. Standing among them. Dressed in black. A crown of shadows on her head. Leading the dance forever. She screamed, clenching tighter. "No!" The fissure erupted, flames of red fire licking up the walls. The king roared, teeth splitting wider, pressing harder. Ellen slammed the jewel against the ground. It didn't break. The laugh rose again. Adrian's laugh, but multiplied, echoed by every dancer, every shadow. "You can't destroy it. You can only take its place. Ellen's hands shook violently. The jewel throbbed against her skin, fusing into her palms, pulling her closer to the fissure. Harper grabbed her shoulders, shaking her. "Ellen, let it go." "Let it." But his words cut off. A shadow's claws punched through his chest. Ellen screamed as Harper crumpled, the pipe clattering from his hand. His eyes met hers, wide, pained. His lips moved silently, "Finish it." And then he was gone. Dragged into the dancers, swallowed whole. Her vision blurred with tears. The jewel burned brighter, brighter, binding her wrists, pulling her toward the fissure. The king below's mouth opened wide, the final invitation. "Dance with me. Forever." Ellen's scream ripped through the night. She lifted the jewel one last time. And drove it straight into her own chest. The world exploded. The fissure convulsed, light pouring outward in a tidal wave. The dancers shrieked in unison, their bodies ripping apart, shadows dissolving into ash. Adrian's grin melted into nothing. The face of the king below howled as the cracks sealed inward, crushing it back into the abyss. And then, silence. The jewel was gone. So was the fissure. So were the dancers. Ellen stood alone in the empty, ruined gym, her breath ragged. Blood dripped from the hole in her chest, but no heart beat there. Instead, a faint glow pulsed where the jewel had been, veins of light spidering outward across her skin. She staggered to a broken mirror along the wall. And she saw herself. Her reflection no longer matched her. A black crown of shadows flickered above her head. Her eyes glowed faint red. And behind her, in the glass, the class of 99 stood, smiling. Waiting. Her stomach dropped. "No." The reflection smiled back. The king below's voice whispered, soft, intimate, final. "The prom never ends. And now, you lead the dance." The gym filled with music. A warped, scratchy prom ballad, echoing from speakers that no longer worked. The lights flickered, spinning like a disco ball from hell. And Ellen began to dance.